In this video, I'm going to introduce you to a fun and useful library of code called random. So to get access to it, we start off with import random. And then this is how we're going to get some random numbers, which can be fun for various games and things like that. So I just have some notes here to keep my thoughts in order. So the first thing I can do is, so I'm calling the library name here. And somewhat confusingly, this library has a function that has the same name as it. So random is the name of the library. That's what I imported up here. Random is the name of the function. And then dot is saying this function belongs to this library right here. And then we have parentheses because it is a function. Now, I need to put the result of this function, the value that it returns, into a variable. So I'm just going to put it in x. And then I will print it out. So, I won't print it out if I don't put x there. All right, so I got 0.1587667 blah, 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 blah. Let's see what happens if I run it again. Ran it again, I got 0.700905, etc., etc. I run it again. 0.379. All right, so what random.random does is it gives back, it returns a random number between 0 and 1. So this can be a really handy thing to do. If you wanted to check and see, or if you wanted to decide between two things with 50% chance, you might do if x is less than 0.5, print, I don't know, what's the 50-50 chance thing? I don't know. One thing, else, other thing. Not feeling very inventive right now. All right, so now there's a 50-50 chance between these two things. And as usual, instead of just putting x, the variable right here, we could put random.random. We could actually call the function right here. When it gets called, it will be replaced by that random value that it returns. All right, so that's the first thing right there. Let's move on to rand int. Int for integer. So as you might guess, this is going to give us a random integer. Now for rand int, you have to tell it what numbers you want your integer to be between. So suppose we want a number 1 to 10. And as usual, I'll put this in a variable and then I'll print it out. So it chose 2. Run it again, I get 8. Run it again, I get 8 again. Okay, sometimes that's going to happen. So this is going to be inclusive with 1 and 10. So this could return 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, any of those numbers. Right? Again, random is the library right there. Dot means this function belongs to this library. We're going to see dot a whole bunch more in the future. We already saw it if you watched the turtle video, or sorry, the function video that came before this that talked about turtles. We imported turtles and then we had some dots in there, right? Dot means belongs to, and that is a really important thing to start getting used to. This is saying whose randint function? Random's randint function, the one that belongs to the randint library. You can get, actually, we'll see more of randint as we go forward here. I'm just going to keep going with my reminder little comments to myself. Suppose we want a coin flip. Right? We kind of showed this already with random by going checking if it was less than 0.5. I could also just ask for a 1 or a 2. And then I could say if x equals 1, print heads, else print tails. Oops. So all of the values that randint returns are going to be equally likely. So let's see what we get. I'm going to run it. 2, and that gives us tails. Run it again. 1 gives us heads. All right. So we get a random number, 1 or 2, and we can check which it is and get heads or tails. So there's your coin flip right there. How about a dice roll? So a regular die has 6 faces. So we want to go 1 through 6. I'm going to get rid of this right here and run it. And I got 3 the first time. And the next time I got 3 again. Sometimes that'll happen. I run it again, I got 5. Okay. Suppose I want to get a random number between negative 100 and 100. This is fine too. I can put in negative 100 and then 100, and I can run it. So I can do negative values with randint. There's no problems there. I get negative 55. That seems reasonable. Run it again. I get 68. Okay. Be careful though. You cannot put these in an order such that the first number is bigger. I can't do 100 then negative 100. That will cause problems. All right. And it's a little strange. So not only does it cause this error, value error, empty range, so it can't find a range in this interval, but you'll notice that it opened up a whole new file in Python. This is random.py. It actually opened up the program that I imported from the Python library. This can cause lots of problems, especially if you're not paying attention and you happen to edit this file. If you make changes in this file and then save them, you will have edited Python's permanent random library. This will cause random to possibly malfunction. So please be very careful. Close this out, go back to your code, and always make the fix in your code. It's pretty reliable that Python's library doesn't have any obvious mistakes like that. So I got 40 here. Now that's how to get an integer between negative 100 and 100. What if I want a decimal from negative 100 to 100? The only thing that I said gave decimals was random.random, and it doesn't take any arguments. If I try to give it an argument like negative 100 to 100, this is also going to break, right? So random takes no arguments. A very clear description of the problem here. It takes no arguments, but 2 were given. That's the problem. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get decimal numbers. Like I want to find negative 68.5 as a possible result. I want to see like 2.4 as a possible result. How in the world am I going to do that? Well, let's experiment with some other things and sort of get closer and closer to that question. Let's see if we can first get a range from 0 to 100. I've already got numbers from 0 to 1. If I just take those numbers and multiply by 100, now I'll actually have a range from 0 to 1. Right? My initial range was 0 to 1. If I multiply both of these numbers by 100, which is essentially what I'm doing, 0 is still 0, but my second number is now 100. So let's see what I get. All right, 62.17, that's good, that's a decimal, that's bigger, 28.23, great. So I'm getting numbers that are between 0 and 100 by just multiplying by 100. But I wanted from negative 100 to 100, so how am I gonna figure out how to do this? So you might think that an idea is just subtract 100, all right? So if I run that, see what I get. Negative 20, negative 19.187, negative 42.6, negative 68.2. These are all negative. Interesting. Well, let's think about what I had. So I had 0 to 100. That was my range. If I subtract 100 off of these, I've now got negative 100. 0 minus 100 is negative 100. To 100 minus 100 is 0. Now I've got a range from negative 100 to 100, or sorry, to 0, which is not what I want. I'm trying to get from negative 100 to positive 100. So I need to change this again in some way. Well, think about how wide this interval is. How many numbers are there between negative 100 and 100? There's about 200 numbers. So I would like to expand my range by 200, not by 100. So I'm going to multiply by 2 instead. So actually go back to this step right here. Instead of multiplying, actually let's go back here. So instead of multiplying by 100, I'm multiplying by 200. So now my interval is from 0 to 200. I run that. 18.9, okay. 10.12, give me a big number. 75.6, bigger. 98.3, bigger. 55.7, well, this is the nature of randomness. Sometimes you don't get what you want. There you go, 143.49. So I can get values that are over 100. But that's not what I want. Again, I want negative 100 to 100. But this is good. 0 to 100 is a good starting place. Now if I subtract 100, consider what that does. 100 minus, or 0 minus 100 is negative 100. 200 minus 100 is 100. I claim that now I've got the interval that I want. So let's check it and see. So 25.4, that's in my range. Negative 71.2, this looks good. 17.77, I'm getting positive and negative numbers. They're between 100 and negative 100. So this seems good. And in fact, it is good because I've done this before. So suppose you want some decimal numbers between some number and some other number. Negative 10 to 10. We'll change it. The first thing you need to figure out is how wide is your range. This is 20 wide. You want to multiply random.random by the width of your range. In fact, let's use some variables to make this easier to read. My width is 20. I'm going to multiply by the width. And then what you want to do is you want to subtract off the minimum value, whatever your lowest number is, in this case, negative 10. Minimum equals negative 10. So I'm going to subtract off the minimum. So this is the key way to get numbers that are decimals between two other numbers. You got to find your width of your interval, and you got to find your minimum number. And you multiply by the one, you subtract the other. So, oh wait, something went wrong. Oh, I made the minimum negative, and then I also subtracted it. Oops. Let's make it positive and then subtract it. All right, negative 0.69. 8.5. These are all between negative 10 and 10. Negative 1.69 again. Weird. 7.62. So there you go. Lots of things that you can do with random. You can use these in games of chance, and we'll see a lot more of random in the future.